Welcome to Talkin' Ball with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
A very pleasant good Tuesday morning to you. Welcome into another edition of Talkin' Ball. My name is Steve Moulton, filling in for Scott Theisen, who will be back here tomorrow morning, and I'm actually down here at Miramar Beach as the spring meetings launched officially last night, as I was able to sit in on that press, I say press conference. It just felt more like a gathering down here with the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. Drew DeArmond is back in the studios, I'm assuming. Drew, good morning. How are you today?
Good, Steve. Just having a pretzel. I hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend. Obviously, you got a chance to extend your vacation, a work vacation, that is. But you and Wes are in Destin at the spring meetings. You're going, you're not, you're going, you're not, but you're going. So that's great.
So there's only one way to start today's program. And for those of you that know Scott Theisen, you know his fondness for one Bill Walton, and hearing his news of his passing yesterday, it got to me. I don't know about you, Drew, but so there's really only one way to start this program here today. Here is ESPN's Michael Wilbon.
What's your name in there?
Take a bite out of it while it's lit.
While it's lit?
Oh, I'm kidding. I'm going to get out of your shot here, guys.
Great to see you, Snoop. National Popcorn Day, please. Party on. Let's go.
While some folks marched to the beat of their own drum, Bill Walton had not only his own percussion section, but a full orchestra as well.
That sun comes up every day, and my approach, what can I do to make things better for as many people as possible?
Growing up in San Diego in a household where sports were an afterthought, Walton fell in love with basketball at an early age.
Being a very shy young man and very reserved, sports gave me an outlet. A place where I could run around and yell and scream and not be chastised. But sports was always something that, with enthusiasm and emotion, I could let my personality out and be very free on the basketball court.
The 6'11" center moved up the California coast to UCLA, where he would play for the great John Wooden and the Bruins dynasty of the 1970s.
When Coach Wooden actually started calling and coming around, that was a dream come true. Because from the first time I ever saw UCLA play basketball to everything I ever knew about John Wooden, I knew that's what I wanted to do.
From his sophomore through senior seasons, Walton was named College Player of the Year 3 times, led the Bruins to a historic 88-game winning streak, and won 2 national championships.
Bill Walton has now made, and get this, 21 out of 22 field goal attempts tonight.
At a time when black athletes like Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, and Jim Brown stood at the forefront of the civil rights movement, Walton was one of the few white stars who publicly took anti-government and social justice stances, which led to his arrest during the tumult of the 1970s.
I grew up in an environment where I was encouraged by my parents and by my coaches to question authority, to think for myself, and to have an opinion.
The Portland Trailblazers selected him first overall in the 1974 draft, but chronic foot injuries would limit the first 3 seasons he played. Once he recovered, Walton led them to their only NBA championship in 1977, where he was named Finals MVP. Walton won league MVP honors in 1978, but the following season he demanded a trade after losing trust in the Blazers front office for how they managed his and other players' injuries. He set out the entire 1979 season in part to protest and signed with the Clippers a year later.
My decision to leave the Portland Trailblazers was the toughest decision I've ever had to make in my life because that was my team, and I love those guys. But the breakdown in trust in what makes a team work had been so complete.
The Clippers traded Walton to the Celtics, where he won Sixth Man of the Year in 1985-86, becoming an integral part of the great Celtics team that beat the Rockets in the NBA Finals. Walton retired in 1990 and moved into broadcasting. He worked for CBS, NBC, ABC, and ESPN. And as a man who once shied away from speaking due to severe stuttering, Walton became known for his blend of incisive yet unconventional commentary that endeared him to multiple generations of viewers and listeners.
Nature of the Wildcats coming right in there, claws flailing.
We're going to pound on that drum all day long. You're Dave, right?
Erwin Roach with a free throw. Bill is taking his shirt off.
I'm not into being remembered. I learned from yesterday. I dream about tomorrow. But I try to make today my masterpiece. Try my best to be better, to do better, and to do more. I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
So that is the tribute that ESPN gave Bill Walton, and felt the need to play it just because how unique of an individual he truly was. I met him twice. But last interaction I had with the big man was via email, trying to get him on as a guest after that last line of what the worldwide leader did in, was that a 4-part series? I think it was either 4 or 5-part series of the Luckiest Man.
It was a multi-part series, yes.
Yeah. It was, but it was well done, and I would encourage people to watch it if they have not, to kind of chronicle his journey that was surmised right there as we are talking now about the late great Bill Walton, unfortunately. But we're about the same age, Drew, and so I never saw him play at UCLA, but that second round, if you will, with the Boston Celtics, and the integral part that he played in what was a very powerful team there in the 80s, I think cannot be overlooked in what he was there to add to that team there in Boston.
Well, I can just tell you this. I think the 86 Celtics are on the short list of the greatest team of all time. And when you talk about Bill Walton being the sixth man, that's pretty good. And I'll never forget, reading Larry Bird Drive when Red, called Larry Bird into the office and said, "What do you think about Bill Walton?" And he was like, "Sign him." Basically,
no hesitation,
because that was Larry Bird's idol. I mean, when Larry was growing up, was Bill Walton at UCLA and the way he played. And look, this is how I equate Bill Walton. He was the Gale Sayers of the NBA, and what I mean by that is Gale got hurt, and we never saw him, play at a high level for an extended period of time. But for about 5 years, he was the best player in football. Well, Bill Walton, when he was healthy, and we didn't see that nearly enough, he was a Hall of Fame player. There's no doubt in my mind. He would have won probably 5 or 6 championships. Portland probably would have won more if they had a medical staff that was sane, or if they had a little bit of luck where Bill had not gotten hurt so much.
I did want to pass along talking about Bill Walton with Jimmy Himes last night, and he mentioned Joe Namath, that he thought had either one of them been completely healthy for their entire careers, we don't know how truly great they would have been had they stayed 100% healthy.
Oh, of course. And the thing about Bill Walton is he had a late growth spurt. He was a guard. He was a point guard for, the first part of his basketball life. And early in high school, he was 6'2", and then he grew to 6'6", and as his high school coach said, by the time he was a senior in high school, he was 6'10", and everybody else was 6'2" or 6'3", and yet he had guard skills. And so Bill Walton was just ahead of his time. Kareem was the greatest scorer of all time and was dominant, but you could say that Bill Walton may have been the best passing center ever and was probably the best all-around center of all time when he was healthy. You can make that argument. A lot of people don't because, again, the body of work wasn't big, but he won a championship for the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, wrap your head around that. And
Portland.
Yeah,
Okay.
as many great teams as they've had, and they've had some good teams. Yeah, it was. That's their only championship there in Portland.
And the other amazing thing about Bill is if you delve into it, and I didn't know this until I watched his documentary, but that he had a very bad stutter. And so to think about him becoming a broadcaster of the ilk that he did. Now, as a broadcaster, he drove me insane. I just because he never really talked about the game. He talked about everything else.
Yeah, that's right.
But his sons cracked
the coalescence of existence.
But his sons cracked me up because they're like, everybody always asks us, like, is your dad like that at home like he is on TV? He's the exact same person. Exactly. For sitting there watching a game on TV with him. So, I mean, I will say this. The one word to use to describe for me for Bill Walton is original. There's not another Bill Walton. There never will be. I hate that I never met him. I've got one story, and of course, Steve, I know you're going to be stunned by this. It has to do with AP Stedham. Where's Waldo? And you're probably going to see AP down there with you, maybe. I wouldn't be shocked. You could even ask him about this.
I wouldn't either.
But he told us this story at SEC Media Days a few years ago, and I was just sitting there captivated. He had Bill on a podcast and used his connections to get Bill Walton. And you know how you're supposed to take breaks, right? And talk and have commercials and everything. Bill talked for 22 straight minutes, thanking everyone he knew from Alabama and going over everyone he knew from the state of Alabama with AP. AP had to start it over because they didn't go to commercial for 22 minutes.
So every email interaction, I'm counting them up here. I've got about 11 emails. Yeah, it's about 11 here from Bill. But he signs each email with, I'm the luckiest guy in the world from the bright side of the road. So that's why I did tweet out, thinking about you and your family, Bill Walton from the bright side of the road, because he'd always end it from the bright side of the road. I'm sure there is some kind of reference there to the dead that I don't know because I'm not a deadhead. And no. he was very known for following the Grateful Dead. So,
over 1,000 shows, including one in the desert, gosh. If you want to watch the documentary.
Yeah.
And to top it all off, he referred to a Dead concert as church. That was his church.
That's right.
Bill Walton's church was the Dead. The Grateful Dead.
I was thinking about his wife and his kids and his grandkids, but there will not be any other like the late great Bill Walton. So yesterday officially started spring meetings down here in Miramar or Sandestin, whatever you want to call it. But nonetheless, it was a press conference from Greg Sankey that took 42 minutes, and there was a lot discussion about the settlement that took place last week and a lot of speculation. And reporters just asked the same questions over and over and over and over and over. And I really wish you could have been in the room with me, Drew, because I was in the front row right in front of him, sitting next to Chip Towers from the AJC. I think he's still at the AJC. Who knows? But nonetheless, after about the fourth time, I'm hearing the same question out of Pete Thamel. I'm like, goodness gracious, can we just move on? But I thought this was interesting. In part of the settlement, here's what Commissioner Sankey had to say.
To be in collective bargaining, you're going to have to be in an employment situation. I've not had a student athlete come to me and say, I want to be taxed like an employee. And so there are those who advocate for that reality. That takes me back to a fundamental statement, which is there's no better time to be a student athlete than right now in the history of college sports. No better time. And again, they're not calling me saying I want to be an employee, I want to be taxed like an employee. Those rights advocates, they have freedom of movement, they have freedom to access name, image, and likeness opportunities. it's a pretty good existence. And we ought to be careful to try to honor that while we think through better ways to support our student athletes in a national competitive structure.
So that's a little bit there from Commissioner Sankey. No better time to be a college athlete than right now. Drew DeArmond.
Yeah, exactly. But you better get it while you can, because it's going to be restructured, and again, you got to pay taxes no matter what. So,
yep.
Everybody needs to. The first thing they need to do in their presentation over there in Destin, you need to go up to Sankey and tell him to delve into the story of Antonio Brown. What not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
what not to do.
That's actually
$88
million. So,
yep.
You know what I'm saying?
What not to do.
Exactly, because he's supposedly got about $50,000 left and is $3 million in the hole. So, I know Antonio had a love-hate relationship with his teammates, and I don't always agree with everything Ryan Clark says, but Ryan Clark was right about Antonio Brown. The minute you give Antonio Brown big money, it's going to be a mistake. Because
coming up on I'm sorry, Drew, please.
No, I was just saying you have to be able to manage your money and make solid decisions. I mean, and trust me, I sometimes don't manage mine as well as I should. But that, especially if you're talking about the kind of money that these collegiate athletes have a chance to make, and even in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then, of course, what it should serve to do, and Sankey may talk about that this week, is this should prepare these players that go to the NFL on how to manage your money. You ought to be able to get a jump start on it, and it'll be on a grander scale if you reach the NFL on the highest level. But again, you still should be well compensated even in college now, and you need to learn how to manage your money and save it and everything like that.
There was already some talk outside of the press conference room that there was some real thought on creating those classes and making them mandatory for all of the student athletes. Well, gosh, I kind of roll my eyes even more when I hear the word student athlete, but nonetheless, but to have those classes that the NFL has with their rookies on those classes of how to manage your money and how many hands are going to be out in front of you, because this is very real that happens to these kids. And frankly, there's some of these kids that really are starting to ruin their credit now. And
exactly, man. And that's a real thing. It's hard to get your credit back.
Yes, that is a very real thing.
It doesn't matter if you run a 4.3 40 and you scored 35 touchdowns. You ain't got no damn credit. They're not giving you nothing.
That's right. If your score,
you're going to leave in Bill's TP.
Yeah, if you're in the 500s, then the doors close for you. There is action, there is consequences to what's going on here. So there is more talk on putting classes together for these kids who are still kids, even though they are getting paid very well. A lot of them are. But nonetheless, coming up on the program today, we'll talk to Chris Lee as the Southeastern Conference, and it was touted yesterday quite a bit about 11, the number 11. And no, I'm not talking about turning up the dial to number 11 like Spinal Tap, but nonetheless, 11 is the key number as the SEC broke their own record. They tied with the ACC. And we'll talk to Chris Lee about that coming up in hour number 2. And also, without a sprained ankle or anything, the Alabama softball team is moving on to OKC in a very different way. That was just we'll talk more about that as we're right up against a break. In fact, we're late for our first break. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll hear more from Commissioner Sankey, including I asked him 9 years he's been at the helm.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
97.7 ESPN The Zone is the Tennessee Valley's #1 destination for the finest in sports talk all day long. Tune in to Talkin' Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond each morning at 7. Then, the Morning Blitz with Captain Cool and the Bandy Man. At noon, it's the Tom Abraham Show. followed by Paul Feinbaum and The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton. The Zone is also your home for University of Alabama and UAH sports, plus the Atlanta Braves and the High School Sports Streaming Network. And sister station Talk Radio WZZN has Trash Pandas action with Josh Carey all season long. 97.7 ESPN The Zone and Talk Radio WZZN. Listen on the air or download the apps and take them with you everywhere.
It has happened. 171.294 miles an hour.
You wake up late for school, man, you don't want to go. You ask your mom, please, but she still says no. You missed 2 classes and no homework.
Back here tomorrow morning as you get the full crew back here. In fact, we're all back up and running back here today as the SEC baseball tournament is in the rearview mirror. And so you're going to get the morning blitz as soon as we're done. That's followed by the Chuck Oliver show from 10 to noon. Tom Abraham, noon to 2. That'll be followed by Paul Feinbaum, as I did not run into the bald man yesterday down here on the beach, but saw his set being built over there at the Hilton. And then, of course, I'll be on with Wes here live from Casa Wes here down on the beach. And this place is amazing. But let me put a pin in that. And so of the 42 minutes, I asked one question, and it was how Commissioner Sankey started his press conference mentioning that it's been nearly a decade. It's hard to believe, nearly a decade of him being named commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. And so I asked him, with that in mind, how different does your day calendar look today compared to 9 years ago?
Commissioner, you mentioned 9 years. If I was to take a look at your day calendar 9 years ago compared to today, how different is it?
Well, yeah, very different. Couple things. One, I didn't go to Washington, D.C. a lot. And I think I've been there 5 or 6 times this year, with more to come. I had no cell number of a member of the House or Senate. I now have many, and they have mine. I think I've shared previously that COVID changed my management style, and some of our staff are here. We just had a staff meeting where 2 weeks ago I said, look, if you think I've been distant, not around, focused on things other than you're focused on, you are exactly right because of what's going on around. And so where I would be actively over-managing a number of issues in 2015-16, I am not nearly as involved in those things. And that's a compliment, again, to people on our staff who, we just had 11 teams selected the NCAA baseball tournament. We had an enormous crowd through the week. I am not involved in any of that. that's just a credit that can happen so well to our staff. And I can go back through the year and think about that. I had seen, I think one of the real changes for me is I had been right next to some of my colleagues in the office, Mike's live, and you think that you understand what it will be like. And when Mark Richt retired, he said, you never know what it's like to sit in the chair until you sit in the chair. And so enormous appreciation for people that do these jobs in the Southeastern Conference over the last 90 plus years, but also respect for colleagues who do these jobs in other roles at the college level, given the amount of change. Yeah, it's different. They asked me when I interviewed, I had to write a 1, a 3, and a 10-year plan. So I could write a 1-year plan, and what's interesting, I've gone back and looked, and I batted 700 since we're in the baseball, softball time on that 1-year plan. You think things and you get in, and some of it's delayed. The 3-year plan, some of that took 5 years. The 10-year plan just talked about change, not predicting this sort of change. I talked about people wanting to come to us to find out how we've been able to sustain success and asking questions. I talked about writers and business people and faculty members. I think the OU and Texas outreach was very much about, wanting to be a part of things because we've done so well. So even though I couldn't say A, B, C, D in a decade, here's what's going to happen, some of those big principles I wrote even then as part of that interview plan have played out in kind of real world sort of ways.
So that is a little bit there from the commissioner yesterday over at the Hilton. There was a little bit of news. I'm not sure how much we're all, listen, it's a different world now that the SEC football contract is no longer in the CBS realm. It is completely with Mickey Mouse, and of course we're a part of it as well with ESPN and ABC. So there is a little bit of news that came out yesterday in regards to football schedules.
We will be making some news later this week with a set of kick time announcements. Primarily the first 3 weeks of the season will be announced. That should be coming on May 30th. There'll be some other games in there, a few surprises probably for the season ahead. And then one of the changes that was part of our focus as we looked at the future of our television relationship way back in 2019, 2020, is trying to be more intentional and out ahead of kickoff time announcements for our fans. I want to work back. We'll have some 6-day and 12-day adjustments, but those will be flexes between the afternoon and evening windows. You're going to have a whole primer on this when we go to media days, and you'll see it play out. So by mid-June, we will announce all of our early window kickoff times. So that's the noon Eastern. Really, those kickoff times will be between noon and 1 Eastern. So 11 to noon Central. They won't all be right at that noon Eastern time. A little bit of later flexibility depending on the network, particularly the SEC network. We'll have roughly, we'll see if I get this right, half of our other flex windows. So we'll designate some games either evening window or afternoon window. I guess I should say afternoon and then evening window. Some of those game times can flip a few hours, and then there'll be some that are designated for flex. So as we go through the summer, rather than having all of our games subject to that 12-day and 6-day wait potentially through the season, you're going to know all of our early window kick times. You're going to know those by mid-June. We're going to know a set of afternoon and evening kick times subject to some flexibility, and then the remaining games will be in that flex afternoon, evening. So we'll have a lot more opportunity to communicate with our fans earlier on those kick times.
And he's making a point, he made it several times, Drew, about thinking about the fans and trying to coordinate with the fans, because they certainly did show up in droves in Hoover. And so he is wanting to cater more towards the fan schedule. And this goes right in that line, because those afternoon kicks, the 3 o'clock windows or the 7 o'clock windows on that flex, makes things line up pretty good.
It does. And so people can't get mad. he could not have any influence on Wisconsin and Alabama. He does not control that one.
That's right.
And that's why everybody's
11 a.m.
having
is
brunch
11
in
a.m.,
Madison.
right?
Right. So you're going to still have to play that one at 11 a.m. But, I mean, I did kind of make me crack up when he says all the way back in 19 and 20. So that's already all the way back. That's like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I guess it does seem like an eon, especially when Joe tried to ruin everything. But, hey. Hey, Steve, I mean, good Lord. I wished everybody a happy Memorial Day, and I understand it's a solemn time. I said, please pay respect to those that keep us free. And I had some liberal idiot basically cuss me out and said I was an uncaring bleep.
I don't have a problem with people saying Happy Memorial Day. Listen, do I say Happy Memorial Day? No, I don't. Because I'm trying to remember those that have fallen, that have given us our ultimate
I was just
freedoms.
basically saying enjoy it. You know?
Enjoy the day
downtime,
that so many have sacrificed for us.
And that's what I mentioned in the thing.
Yeah. And don't let a couple of knuckleheads ruin your day, Drew.
Yeah,
okay?
it was just like typical.
Happen.
I'm like, wow, man. I mean, heck, look, Bill Walton was eccentric, but Bill Walton wouldn't have taken offense to that. I mean, some of these folks. I mean, you know, I love the fact that X has a block feature because she gone.
Well, speaking of being gone, we're late for another break, so your phone lines are open if you'd like to be a part of it here this morning on Talkin' Ball. 256-576-4977 is the telephone number, so let's take a time out. We'll hear more from Commissioner Sankey as well as, calm down, Drew, but we may have a long break of no basketball. I know he's fully in to the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, but could very well end tonight. So after a sweep that happened in Indiana, we'll have that to come as well. It is Talkin' Ball here on a Tuesday morning here on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
It has happened. 171.294 miles an hour.
You wake up late for school, man, you don't want to go. You ask your mom, please, but she still says no. You missed 2 classes and no homework. Teacher preaches class like you're some kind of jerk. You gotta fight for your right.
always feel obligated to hit the post on that one. It is a Tuesday morning, Talkin' Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Steve Moulton down here covering SEC spring meetings. Drew DeArmond back in the studios of 97.7 ESPN The Zone. I asked, you called, so let's talk to you. Jeremy is first up on a Tuesday morning. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, guys. Hey, I see blue skies. I see the sun this morning. I'm excited because I woke up this morning and I'm really hope this isn't a dream. Angel Hernandez is retiring. Is
That's true. Yeah, that is true. It is amazing how blue the skies are down here as well. So, yeah.
I mean, I was so happy because I've seen that before this year. Somebody posted that, and it was on one of those satirical pages where they're, satire and they're like making fun and stuff. But I saw sources, and it was on MLB, Fox on MLB, and I was like, please make this be true. Please.
Oh, it's true. Yeah. I double checked that as well. So, yeah, but I wish he was the only problem. Goodness gracious. The strike zone. It's
bad.
It's frustrating to watch a game.
But the question is, are they being told, hey, be a little bit more, change that strike zone up because we really do want to get this automatic strike zone in here. We want to give everybody a reason.
Either that or can we just expand the home plate and just be done with this?
After the fiasco that I saw with the Chicago White Sox the other night,
I missed that one.
They brought in the wrong reliever, and the wrong reliever got brought in, and the manager got ejected because he said, "Hey, wait a minute, the clock's supposed to start as soon as he comes out," and they're like, "Well, it was the wrong reliever." He went back, and another guy came out, and he said that don't matter, and got ejected from the ball game because they gave the guy warm-up pitches, and he's going, wait a minute, what's going on here? And it's just like, the umpires that are there now have a utter lack of knowledge of the rule book of what happens when what's supposed to be going on.
So hopefully it did not escalate much like what we saw with the Tennessee Volunteers over the weekend in Hoover.
Let me say, SEC tournament was top-notch, best thing on television this whole time.
It was great. It was great. Even the blowouts, even the 11-0 early week games, I was locked in. It was really good.
The only thing that sucked was the fundamentals of South Carolina.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, they threw up all over themselves.
But it's amazing what bats will overcome, right?
Well, they didn't overcome the LSU.
I realize that, but they were able to make it.
You got to be able to throw to first. You got to be able to field the ground ball at first or third. They benched their shortstop who was having to play third because he stunk. Then they put a guy in there who gets a ground ball hit to him, turns, realizes he can't beat the guy to the bag, and throws the ball 10 feet over his. It was brutal. You look at the South Carolina dugout. In Mark Kingston, he just got his head down. Hopefully they'll pick it up in the regionals because they get a reprieve. Everybody made it. 11 teams get in, and amazingly, this surprised me because I thought Alabama might be a 3. 10 of them are 2 seeds or 1. And I've never seen the top 3 national seeds be from one league and 5 of the top 7 because your Dogs got number 7. So
that's right.
That's right. And really 4 of the top 5.
And they were one and done last week in Hoover too.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see Tennessee. To me, Tennessee came back. Because they lost to Vanderbilt in the first game and had to win elimination games to get back into a groove. And what they've got going on up there in Knoxville with that baseball team is, to me, something that we haven't seen in a long time in the SEC. And the thing about it is, it's not just happening in Knoxville. It seems like it's spread out across the whole league. because you can't say there's a better league in college baseball than the Southeastern Conference. There's not.
No, you can't.
I mean, the proof is in 11 teams going to the regionals. But but hey, just like this, with all these 11 teams, the reason why they're so good is because it just means more. Y'all guys, y'all have a good one. I'll talk to y'all later.
Thank you, Jeremy. Richard is up next. Good morning, Richard.
Morning, guys. You were talking about Bill Walton, and one thing, and I'm just going from memory, and I guess I was, high school, junior high when he played at UCLA. You didn't have, but one or two games on TV a weekend, and in the SEC, I think you just had a Saturday slot. So, so as a fan, you probably saw Bill Walton play more on TV than Leon Douglas.
Yeah,
back in those days. So I mean, your average fan, even in the South, knew who Bill Walton was and, how good UCLA was because, the conferences were smaller, so you had a lot more non-conference games. And you'd have like UCLA, NC State, UCLA, Notre Dame, on, TVs on Saturdays. So like I said, you would see, Walton and UCLA play, probably more than you would see Alabama play, unless you were, actually went to the games back in those days. So, you knew who he was and, how good he was, more so than today to where, you're more likely to just watch an SEC game when they're, on a Saturday, you got 4 or 5, 6 games in a row, on TV. But like I said, kind of a different era.
It really was. And it's going to be an interesting week too, as you know, Richard, with the draft deadline coming up.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see by the 29th on, Sears and Stevenson. So I know they've been down in Miami, I think, working out with, I think their agents down there. So, So they've been, down there. But I guess, like you said, we'll see something in a couple of days here, one way or the other, if they're coming back. Because I know, at Alabama, I know a lot of the, basketball and football players showed up yesterday.
They did, including Ryan Williams. So good luck, everybody.
Yeah, because I think summer school starts the 28th in Alabama. So you'll see probably, these next couple of days, all these guys rolling in. One thing you may want to tell Jeremy is I'm heading to work here, but I just went through Hampton Cove, and it was foggy there, so you can't see the sun.
Uh-oh.
But Angel did retire, though. I'm just giving him a hard time. So, one thing, too, what you were talking about, Steve, you're down in Destin about the TV times. That's fairly amazing, especially for people, that come in from out of town.
Yeah.
For the games.
Yeah. No, it's a big deal. And I think it's very important that that this gets released rather than – because of the 42-minute press conference, I want to say about 98% of it was asking the commissioner to speculate on Title IX issues and – revenue sharing, and it just we don't have those answers, and it's not coming anytime soon. So
this is just the start of it. Okay, they're not going to have any concrete answers.
No.
Actually, Drew's, like I said a few weeks ago, Drew's buddy Joe doesn't know what Title IX is anyway because they can let men play with women now. On Joe's kind of redefined Title IX, so. So you can just stash another, men's basketball team on the women's team now with Joe. So, how does that count? I mean, because a lot of these states are actually suing them, but so he doesn't know the difference between a man and a woman. So you don't know what Title IX anymore. Like I said, they've changed it now to where like a transgender person, I don't know what they count as. So
probably an illegal vote.
Well, appreciate the phone call,
later.
Richard. Let's talk to Robert in Birmingham. Good morning.
Guys, good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, I was calling. I heard this over the weekend that Sears has been offered $850 on his NIL, and Clifford, which I think is old news, got $1.2 million. I don't know if Drew wants to confirm those or not. Drew, you probably can comment on this. What did Nate Oates' NIL number go up to? I heard for like $4 million. Is that correct?
It's middle of the SEC. Last year was bottom third. I've heard $4 million, but I mean I think it's
hard to really know those
it's
numbers.
It's hard to just peg it, but trust me,
yeah,
it's
concrete to
it
say
was definitely
this is the
beefed
number.
up. And then they're trying to continue to move up. So
I do know this, that Monday when Kentucky was coming after him, I'm not a rich person, but I was with one, and the phone calls were coming in from Nate to the top 20 people that were given NIL, saying, "Are you with me or not? Are you kind of mean like NIL wise, you're gonna keep donating if y'all all say you are, I'm gonna stay, or if you increase it a little bit." But lastly, I got to hear DeBoer speak last Monday at the Red Elephant Club in Birmingham. I think it must have been like five clubs. There were 500 people there. I think we're fine. Everything's in place. Where you can't. If he's a good coach, we're gonna be fine. It's just might take him some time to get together. But in the new climate and era, the main goal is to make the playoff. It doesn't matter what make the playoff. The SEC championship doesn't mean anything anymore. I think this year we can go 9-3. If the 3 losses are to LSU, Georgia, and on the road at Tennessee, I think we can make it. But I think we're fine with him. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's won everywhere he's gone. The infrastructure is there. It can be. I think we're fine. Did you go to that meeting, Drew?
I did not. I went to. We had Chris Kapelic, the offensive line coach at the Huntsville Red Elephant Club. Very, very insightful conversation. Was able to attend that.
That's great. What do you think about him? Our offensive line has not been good the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's been up and down quite a bit. They don't have their numbers where they want them to be yet, but they're working on it, and I think they'll sign 5 or 6 in the recruiting class coming up in 25. The key this year is going to be keeping the first 5 healthy and getting Brailsford back. If they can do that, I think they'll be fine. Personally, I heard what you just said about 9-3. I think they have a chance to be at least a 10-win team. I know the schedule's difficult, but look, man, if he can outcoach Steve Sarkisian, Dan Lanning, all these guys, and Lincoln Sharman, he can outcoach guys like Josh Heupel. I can guarantee you that.
Right.
If I were Alabama,
I appreciate him not. Drew, I appreciate you not saying Kirby Smart, and I know you did that just
because
I'm on here.
Kirby has a national championship caliber team. I mean, they're going to be 1, 2, 3. Yeah. That's going to be a tough game, even in Tuscaloosa. I mean, Georgia's got a great roster, but piss on Tennessee. We're coming. That's all I'm saying.
Hey,
we're going to burn your house down.
Last thing, I think with Milroe, he will either be a top 7 pick in the draft next year, or he'll be benched, not able to pick up the system by game 4. I mean, I think it's going to be that hot or cold. I don't know. The system has got to be. I think the offensive line will probably play. The offensive line scheme will be better, and we will protect more. But he's got to be able to pick up the reads better than he did last year, make quicker decisions, and who knows if he's going to be able to do that. We have no idea, and we won't know until probably the second week of the season. So,
I'll just say this.
That's a big.
That third game at Wisconsin, I think, will show quite a bit.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, he's going to have to play well. I mean, Ty Simpson's, putting pressure on him, but he's earned the starting position, and I'm anxious to see what a coaching staff that's, and especially a head coach that's an offensive guy, what they can do with Milroe. I mean, I think he has a lot of physical talent. We'll see what they can do with him mentally. They did a great job with Penix, who people forget he was not he was basically a 3-star guy coming out of high school, like a high 3-star. He wasn't considered a first-round pick, but they developed him into one. He developed several quarterbacks into pros. Milroe has all the physical ability, and then maybe they can reach him a little bit better, because Nick Saban, he hired some brilliant offensive coordinators, especially Steve Sarkisian, who I thought was great. Lane Kiffin did a solid job, but again, some of them were just, I think, decent. And I think Tommy Rees is still developing. But I'll just say this: I do think this offensive staff that that Kalen DeBoer has put together is elite. And I think the wide receivers coaching, I thought Holman Wiggins did a solid job, but nothing spectacular. I think they've, Jamarcus Shepard is going to be an upgrade. And then it's all about the Jimmies and the Joes. They've got, to me, the best freshman wide receiver in America, who's on campus now, and he's going to be a big problem for everybody.
Robert, we're right up against it. Appreciate the phone call, sir. And you mentioned Michael Penix right there, something that I honestly forgot about, but Jimmy Hyams reminded me of someone that passed on Michael Penix, Josh Heupel.
I thought he was the greatest offensive mind in college football.
I thought you might enjoy that. Let's take our final timeout. Brandon, we'll get right to your phone call on the other side, winding down hour number 1. We'll be right back.
97.7 ESPN The Zone is the Tennessee Valley's #1 destination for the finest in sports talk all day long. Tune in to Talkin' Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond each morning at 7. Then, the Morning Blitz with Captain Cool and the Bandy Man. At noon, it's the Tom Abraham Show, followed by Paul Feinbaum and The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton. The Zone is also your home for University of Alabama and UAH sports, plus the Atlanta Braves and the High School Sports Streaming Network. And sister station Talk Radio WZZN has Trash Pandas action with Josh Carey all season long. 97.7 ESPN The Zone and Talk Radio WZZN. Listen on the air or download the apps and take them with you everywhere.
It has happened. 171.294 miles an hour.
You wake up late for school, man, you don't want to go. You ask your mom, please, but she still says no. You missed 2 classes and no homework. But your teacher preaches class like you're some kind of jerk. You gotta fight for your right to
Is the telephone number. Brandon joins us here on a Tuesday morning. Good morning, Brandon.
Morning, Brandon.
Morning. I feel like I need to start a 7-day fast after what I did over the weekend. Good Lord.
Uh-oh.
So much food. Just made protein shake it for a few days to try to get it down a little bit. So Philip Planisic wins Alabama's first tennis national championship as a single.
Yep. Crazy, and he wasn't even he came out of nowhere, kind of.
Yeah, that's what I was being heard. I listened to a pretty good bit of talk about it over the weekend. And dude just went out there and had himself a day, and he mowed him down. And congratulations to him. You don't get to talk about Alabama men's tennis very much, but
right.
dude just quietly did his thing. So I wonder what his NIL value is.
Right question.
Well, tennis used to be a deal. I mean, tennis used to be bigger on the landscape, and I think tennis feels like one of those sports that's kind of teetering right now.
Yeah, and let's not forget what happened to UAH tennis. That was sad.
Yeah.
'Cause that was one of those sports that was dropped.
Well, and you still got Birmingham Southern. They're still alive.
That's amazing.
That's a bad term to use.
Yeah,
Birmingham.
baseball. That's right. Yeah.
They're still alive, even though they're walking the plank, so to say.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a GoFundMe to help the guys with their expenses on the way to the College World Series, the D3 College World Series.
Yeah, they start on June the 1st, and the university closes on May 31st. So by the time they play in the World Series, the university will be closed.
How about that?
I really don't understand why another institution doesn't just step in and absorb them, like Auburn or Alabama or somebody big enough to just keep that thing going. That's got a little bit of a mystery to me as to why they're letting the doors close on it, because it's got to be
a minor league farm program for an SEC school. That's interesting.
Yeah. Somebody to step in and absorb it and just keep it going, because the community has got to need it. And then talking about that, I saw a tweet that said every ACC host drew an SEC number 2. Now that's interesting.
Yeah, North Carolina drew LSU. Good luck.
So I wonder what kind of back room was going on when they decided to seed that tournament, because I don't think every ACC host getting a number 2 is an accident.
Probably not. I mean, you know, I think the Gators are going to be a dangerous 3. They're in Stillwater over there, in Oklahoma State's, been a perennial, postseason team. Made it to Omaha several times, not as much as they used to back in the days of Robin Ventura and Pete Incaviglia and those guys, but they're still a really good program. But if Florida can get any pitching, they'll be dangerous. Alabama's draw was kind of difficult. They faced UCF, who is one of the last 4 in, but has been, historically a good, college baseball program. And then the Stetson Hatters and Florida State. So, but what a turnaround Link Jarrett has done at FSU, because they didn't even make the ACC tournament last year before he was hired.
Well, roll tide, gentlemen.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon. I'll give you a go, Dogs. How about that?
Yeah,
all
number
right,
7 national seed, Charlie Condon.
We'll see. We'll see what
now,
happens here.
You did curse the Timberwolves, Steve. You really cursed them. I told Freddie Kirby this weekend you moltened them. He moltened the Timberwolves.
So there's still a chance.
Oh,
so you're telling me there's a chance.
Lord.
No team has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. So you're telling me there's a chance. We'll talk about the number 11 on the other side with Chris Lee.
It has happened. 171.294 miles an hour.
You wake up late for school, man, you don't want to go. You ask your mom, please, but she still says no. You miss 2 classes and no homework. But your teacher preaches class like it's some kind of jerk. You gotta fight for your right to party.
SportsMed is the official team physicians of the Rocket City Trash Pandas. And if the pros trust SportsMed, you can too. SportsMed provides every service you might need for complete orthopedic care, specializing in orthopedic surgery, sports medicine, joint replacement, spine surgery, neurosurgery, and podiatry. And they offer their own brace shop, in-house full-body MRI, physical therapy, walk-in clinic, and so much more. 4 locations and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com.
This hour brought to you by SportsMed Orthopedic and Spine Center. Online at sportsmedalabama.com. Welcome to Talkin' Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
It's hour number 2 of Talkin' Ball. Rolling along. This hour brought to you by SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center. Online at sportsmedalabama.com. I'm down here on the beach. Somebody's got to do it, I guess, to cover the SEC spring meetings. Drew DeArmond is back in the studios of 97.7.
And I've seen the photo. He's definitely on the beach. Just look out the window.
And yeah, I will. Yeah, it's really pretty out there. Bailey Lowry is producing us as per usual. Bailey, have you ever seen Spinal Tap?
I've heard one song from them.
So
I
you've
would
never
have said
seen them?
no, but he's
Never seen
Yeah.
These go to 11.
And the number 11 is a big reason why I asked whether or not you've seen Spinal Tap. And I wonder if our next guest has seen Spinal Tap.
I know our next guest probably has some Bill Walton stories.
I bet.
Because he covers basketball.
I'm good with that.
Covers
I'm
football.
good with that,
Covers
yeah.
baseball. Unlike any other with Southeastern14.com. For the last 20 years via the Rivals Network, he's also been the publisher of VandySports.com. And, of course, we're talking about Chris Lee. Chris, good morning. Hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend.
Hello, Cleveland.
Yeah, there you go.
That answers that question in a big, big way.
Hey, I'm going to do – this will be more valuable than anything I can say today. If you've never seen Spinal Tap, especially if you grew up at all in the 80s, that is a must-see. That movie is so funny. My brother and I just that is a top 5 quotable line movie of all time, and it never fails to deliver.
So I was debating on whether or not to play the whole scene or whether or not just to play these go to 11. Because,
But it's very, very special because if you can see, the numbers all go to 11.
Okay, all right. I won't play the full scene, but nonetheless, it's fantastic. Chris, your reaction to 11 for the SEC and the NCAA?
Well, first of all, I'm disappointed that never occurred to me till you played that because, my goodness, that was there for the taking. But, I mean, I think it was deserved. I get the committee, unfortunately, left a lot of bones to be picked. But I don't know that the SEC getting 11 teams is one of them. Maybe that's biased, but I mean, let's look at this objectively too, okay? You've got the 2 teams that were, the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country last year based on finish in Omaha, and they both needed to run the last week or two just to make this thing. I think that tells you a lot about the depth and the difficulty of the league. I mean, you start looking at draft boards. Go to MLBpipeline.com. And I know that this is different than, individual pro talent is different than, who deserves to be the tournament. I get that, but I also think at the same time it's not irrelevant. And I guess this is what I'm getting at. There's a lot of great players and great teams in this league. I think the talent in SEC baseball right now is probably at an all-time high, and so I guess that's a long way of saying I thought they deserved 11, and they got it.
And interestingly, though, I believe 10 of them were 2 seeds, and Florida was the only 3, Chris.
Yeah, and I can't argue that one either. I mean, when you go one game above 500, that's probably what you've earned, but they did play also the toughest schedule in the country. So there's that, and it was a young team. It's a team that relies a little too much on freshmen on the mound, and that's probably going to be that team's undoing in Stillwater. But we'll wait and see. I think they deserved a spot.
Well, the commissioner was asked whether or not this league is going to break their own record next year.
Would have been 13 if they'd had both of them.
Got a little side eye of 2 very formidable programs are coming in next year, so this could very well fall by the wayside in 2025, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, look, at some point, maybe this becomes softball where everybody gets in. I don't know, and I don't follow softball that closely, but you can't help but notice. I don't know how it's going to work. I mean, that's going to be very, very interesting because you've seen how this has shifted the power dynamic in the league. nothing's given anymore. I mean, nobody thought LSU and Florida would have trouble working their way into the NCAA tournament this year, but they did. And next year, who's it going to be that gets the short end of the stick? I mean, you've seen Ole Miss struggle as the league's gotten stronger. You've seen Mississippi State struggle a couple of years, although got it back. So yeah, I'll be very interested to see if those teams can compete with the cream of the crop in the league. I mean, Texas has a history of being able to do it, but Texas also has not been, vintage 2005 Texas of late either.
Yeah, they haven't. They ended up getting a 3 seed. It would have been 2 3 seeds from the SEC, and then it would have been 6 hosts because Oklahoma will host. The Tallahassee Regional matches up with the Norman Regional, but I thought Alabama's draw is not it's manageable, but it's still not easy. They get UCF, who is one of the last 4 teams in, according to the committee chair, and then you've got Stetson and Florida State. It's a pretty good regional.
Yeah, it is. I'm trying to remember. Let me find my matchups here before I can elaborate a little bit. I'm trying to remember how I had that regional ranked competitively. Excuse me while I pull some of this up here.
That's all right. Talking to Chris Lee right now.
I think that's. Yeah, I found it finally. I'm sorry. I think that's a really balanced regional. I think you got kind of a middle of the road 1 seed, a middle of the road 2 seed, a middle of the road 3 seed, and a tough 4 seed in Stetson, which always makes things interesting. Stetson, of course, is used to playing the Floridas and Florida States. I think I may not say that. A lot of those Florida teams see to play each other in the midweeks, which is always a good experience for the postseason. So, for Alabama, I'll be curious to see how they pitch.
Yeah, totally.
That's kind of been the issue. Ferrone has been pretty good, but faltered a little bit late. Hess was really good late. That's something that they didn't have all year that maybe they've got in their back pocket. Now, if Ben Hess shows up in that thing, Alabama can hit the ball well enough to where it's capable of advancing.
Well, on the subject of bats, I can't help but want to go to LSU. They certainly swung it well in Hoover. And now they move over to North Carolina.
Yeah, good luck, Tar Heels.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. You know what? That one, I run a computer composite. That's what I was trying to find. I was delaying on you guys a minute ago. Now that I found it, I've got something really interesting for this. I just for fun, I keep a ranking of like 3 computers I trust. They all arrive at power rankings in different ways. Some of it's margin of victory. Some of it's the ELO chess ranking, who you beat. And in that composite, North Carolina was the number 2 team nationally, and LSU was number 4. Now, I'm not saying LSU is the 4th best team nationally, but I'm saying if you look at predictive stuff, that's really interesting. And LSU's got Gage Jump, it's got Luke Holman, and those 2 guys alone are capable of beating anybody in Game 1 and Game 2. Now, they've got a lot of arms in their bullpen. I don't know that those are elite arms. And my goodness, you're going to need those in Chapel Hill the way North Carolina hits home runs. But I'm not sure – well, in fact, I am sure. North Carolina does not have the top-end pitching depth that LSU's got. And if those teams end up meeting on a Saturday night, when I presume LSU will be throwing Gage Jump. Here's another thing, guys. I don't know what and I think Jay Johnson threw a scheme in Game 1 last year, but LIU is one of the weaker 4 seeds in the tournament. Yeah. LSU could probably win that with a bullpen day. If by chance they wanted to save Gage Jump and Luke Holman for a Game 2 and 3 situation, boy, that would be interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Go ahead, Steve.
No, it really does set up well. Which of the 11 SEC teams, which school do you think this is set up the best for to make it out of their regional?
I think I like Texas A&M anyway. I don't think that there is a team in the country that got a better regional pairing, and maybe not one that got a better super regional pairing either. That matchups are a lot in these things. I don't know that I mean, anybody can always lose a regional, but the 2 and 3 seeds that A&M got in Louisiana and Texas, they're good, but they're not great. You could have drawn a Wake Forest or a Duke or somebody like that. They didn't. A&M gets the weakest 4 seed in the field in Grambling on Friday night. So I don't think they're going to have the issue of, and you see one of these or two of these every tournament where the one gets beat by a 4 with some pitching. I think, in round 2, presuming A&M advances in the Super, UC Santa Barbara, San Diego, Oregon, all good teams, none of them great teams. I think I like A&M's team anyway, but you look at the matchups compared to other people, and I'll tell you another team that got a really good regional draw is Arkansas. Now, the Super gets trickier because I think the Charlottesville regional between Virginia and Mississippi State, if those are the 2 teams that get to the final, I think that's a fascinating draw. They're built differently, but I think if you look at the 8 teams in their pairing, including the Super, I think A&M absolutely got the best draw. And there's an argument that that's the most talented team in the field of 64 anyway.
Yeah, that's a great point. No question about it. And I know you felt like Mississippi State may have got the short end of the stick and should have hosted, right?
That's what I feel. I will give you the flip side of that, okay? Mm-hmm. State won, 17-13 in the league, but it also missed, I believe, it missed Tennessee and Kentucky and I think South Carolina. So it missed, the number 1 and number 2 seeds in the tournament. Contrast that with some other teams like Florida that caught just about everybody, and that record can flip in a hurry. And the midweeks weren't the most challenging ones. I think they played Southern Miss in the midweek and won. And in a weekend series, they played somebody else that made the tournament. And I'll find it here for you in a second. But I guess the point is, it wasn't a 7-13, or excuse me, a 17-13 in the league that was created as equal as some of the other ones was. And I'm guessing that's what the committee used to ding State in the end. I don't know. I think really it's whatever the committee wants to use to ding you is what happens. So, yeah, I think there was an argument there, and I would have put in the fact that their 1-2 pitching punch is probably a top 5 in the country in terms of starting pitching situations. And I put a lot of weight on that, especially in a regional. But, it wasn't also at the same time the most egregious error the committee's ever made because the RPI was 25, and again, I trace some of that back to schedule.
Well, Drew DeArmond cannot tease you talking about Bill Walton and me not go there. So your thoughts on the passing of Bill Walton, sir?
Yeah, I never knew him. I have a good friend that did know him and in fact, visited him within the last year and just really, really likes him. He was a joy to listen to. He was out there kind of on his own planet, but my goodness, there was nobody like him. He was a college basketball legend. He was part of one of the last really great dynasties in college ball, and just his unique style and personality and just his, from what I hear, approachability and just the way he treated everybody with respect and kindness. That's something we need more in the world. And man, we'll really miss Bill Walton.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of reminded me of when Kenny Stabler passed away from colon cancer as well. You never really nobody knew how, the Kenny's health situation until he passed away. I knew Bill had not been on the air in the last year, but I had no idea that he was fighting that kind of battle with cancer.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. It's awful. It's an awful disease, and it feels like Bill Walton was taken from us too soon because it sure felt like, it certainly through his last days on the air, he still brought that energy and that spirit that everybody loved him for. And college basketball will not be the same with Bill Walton gone.
Nah, we're not going to get a chance to hear Bill Walton do a UCLA Rutgers game in New Jersey, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
we could go off on that, but we won't today.
No, we won't. Now, before we let you go, I know you've been studying these brackets. Can the SEC get at least half the field to Omaha, or at least how many of them do you think of the 11 can advance to at least supers?
Oh goodness, can or will? Because can, gosh.
Ultimately, I guess let's
Tennessee
just go
can.
Will. Let's go Will, the likeliest anyway.
Hard to pick against Tennessee. Hard to pick against Kentucky. I think another team that got a very manageable draw. I'm not going to pick against A&M, as you know.
Yeah.
Arkansas got a favorable draw. I'd have to look at Georgia. But man, they were so good in Foley Field. So that's, if you go chalk, that's 5 national seeds right there. I think South Carolina, North Carolina State is a fairly even matchup. That is in Raleigh and with no Gavin Casas.
Fundamentals.
I'd probably take NC State there. Gosh, Mississippi State, Virginia, that's a toss-up. Vandy's got a shot at Clemson. I mean, they've won the last 2 times they were there.
I do too.
In 17 and 18. I mean, that's about the whole darn league. I think Florida's the one that's going to be tough. I think Oklahoma State hits a bunch of bombs. They're playing at home, and Florida's got a freshman-heavy pitching staff. That's the one where I think, probably the least best shot. And Alabama, too. I don't know if Alabama's pitching is consistent enough. You play a little bit of a bandbox down there in Tallahassee. Those are the two I think going to have the toughest chance. But Alabama's got a shot. I mean, you've got 9, 10 teams that got a chance. I think Florida's going to be the one that I'm probably the least bullish on, though.
It's a great to hear your analysis, and I know you guys are going to be busy this week on Southeastern 14, and, of course, you'll be covering the SEC spring meetings in Destin, but you'll especially be covering baseball unlike any other. And, of course, the rounding out DJ Wagner going to Arkansas. I know Blake Lovell will be all over that. But just let everybody know how to follow you, Chris.
Yeah, go to YouTube, search Southeastern 14, and you'll find us there. We do all kinds of stuff, baseball, basketball, football. We're really bringing you all 3 sports every week right now. So if you want to catch up with the transfer portal churn and whatever in football and certainly in basketball, we cover it, I think, like nobody else.
So, Chris, right at the beginning of the press conference yesterday, Commissioner Sankey said he's retiring. Yesterday was the last day he was wearing his SEC 14 belt. So he had a belt of all the school logos. So when can we expect SEC 14 to retire and move up?
I'm told it's coming soon. The problem is the league keeps making news, and we keep having to cover it. And so that eats into the time a little bit, but it is coming. It'll be here. I cannot give you a date, but sometime before football kickoff. How's that?
There you go. There you go. That's what I want to hear. Thank you, Chris.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Chris Lee from SEC 14 at the moment, but
about to be. I've been joking with him about that SEC 16.
Yeah, no, I fortunately had dinner with Jimmy Himes last night as well as Wes and
I thought Jimmy was retired.
Yeah, that's actually, it's funny you go there because he asked the first question about prop bets, and it was a good question. And immediately Commissioner said, I thought you were retired. It was a great little moment there in between the Commissioner
great Jimmy Himes,
and
just can't stay away.
No, and really enjoyed spending the evening with Jimmy last night down here covering the SEC spring meetings. Let's go ahead and take our first time out. We'll have time to squeeze in maybe a call or two, maybe 256-576-4977, the telephone number. It is Talkin' Ball here on a Tuesday morning.
97.7 ESPN The Zone is the Tennessee Valley's #1 destination for the finest in sports talk all day long. Tune in to Talkin' Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond each morning at 7. Then, the Morning Blitz with Captain Cool and the Bandy Man. At noon, it's the Tom Abraham Show. followed by Paul Feinbaum and The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton. The Zone is also your home for University of Alabama and UAH sports, plus the Atlanta Braves and the High School Sports Streaming Network. And sister station Talk Radio WZZN has Trash Pandas action with Josh Carey all season long. 97.7 ESPN The Zone and Talk Radio WZZN. Listen on the air or download the apps and take them with you everywhere.
It has happened. 171.294 miles an hour.
You wake up late for school, man, you don't want to go. You ask your mom, please, but she still says no. You missed 2 classes and no homework. But your teacher preaches class like you're some kind of jerk. You gotta fight for your right to party.
Get across to you. And if we do that as a team, 11 at a time, 4 years from now, why, we'll be walking out here national champion. And I'll tell you this, I expect nothing less.
97.7 The Zone.
It's Talking Ball on a Tuesday morning, along with Drew DeArmond, Steve Moulton back here with you. This is the exact moment of the press conference I just referenced.
Do my best to dodge every question you ask unless it's about my retiring belt.
You mentioned the availability.
I thought you retired. You and Jay Goose are the 2 worst retirement people that I know.
I made an F in retirement. Has there been much talk with the SEC or schools about trying to ban prop betting on for college athletes?
Not much, some, just recognizing that it's out there. We had a conversation here last year about with our student athletes, so we attached kind of the mental health conversation to sports gambling, to the pressures that we were learning about. It is a conversation that has taken place at a superficial level. There's a depth to it to come. Obviously, Charlie Baker's been clear about the need for some change, getting away from the open-ended nature of things. Also, though, we're talking about legalized sports gambling, and I saw some numbers that I didn't study up yesterday, reading a report about just still staggering numbers of I guess, unsanctioned sports betting that takes place. So, yeah, it's a conversation, but we haven't gone deep, and we haven't started writing letters on the issue.
So 2 states have actually made put into effect of banning prop bets, and it's starting to come more and more because it's very real on the this needs to happen, in my opinion, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, there's just too much, gray area. I mean, when you start legalizing gambling, because
you're asking for trouble in a
bigger
way.
I mean, we've already there's already been some on the surface a little bit of it where you see guys that have been caught betting, and trust me, betting has been going on for years on the down low.
Oh yeah,
but now with NIL, there needs to be some sort of repercussions to it, and with it becoming more prevalent as and being recognized, and not kind of the underbelly like it used to be. So, but you want to have integrity. You don't want any Stephen Headache Smith. I mean, for those.
Very well put. I was just
someone will have to Google that, but I
was letting that soak for a minute.
Tony Soprano.
There you go. In fact, did you see there's a new series coming out in January? Gandolfini's kid is going to play Tony growing up. Anyway, that's a whole other.
I always thought, and God rest his soul, we lost. James Gandolfini way too young, like 51 years old, because I have a feeling there would have been several more movies, maybe not the series being restarted, but movies. And I always wondered how they would restart it. It was too successful where they wouldn't do some sort of spinoff, and I kind of figured his son growing into the role might be what would happen.
So, we'll see. That series comes up in January.
And now who will carry it?
I think that's HBO Max, or just
HBO
Max, or whatever whatever they're calling it this week.
Yeah.
But there is some news out of Tuscaloosa. Well, it actually came out of Knoxville. It was a big weekend for the Vols, obviously, but Alabama.
And it wasn't all good.
But Alabama has once again found their way. I think the best way to put what happened yesterday. Well, excuse me. All these days are jumbling together. But the best way to put it is this.
1-1 pitch. Ground ball to short. Cahalan's there. Makes the throw. Burrow number 3. And Alabama wins the Knoxville Super Regional by a final score of 4-1 here in Game 3 for the 15th time in program history and the 4th time in the last 6 years. Alabama is going to the Women's College World Series.
This is as unexpected of a run that I can ever remember. Even beyond I think this year is a tad more surprising even than last year.
No
even
question.
with all the injuries that happened last year, there was still that Montana Fouts aura around that team last year.
Yeah, and no question. And Torrance got hot at the right time and did a nice job in the circle to help Montana, who of course was pitching with a torn ACL. But the expectations for that Alabama team were very high with Montana coming into the season. This year there was some apprehension, and we had not seen Kayla Beaver in the SEC. Jocelyn Brisky came in from high school, and again she was hurt part of the season. And then this was the biggest struggle we've seen offensively from Alabama. But see, none of it matters now, because that's why it's a tournament sport. And Alabama did enough to, and of course, as Coach Murphy pointed out, it was the first time in Alabama softball history they did not end up with a winning record in the SEC. They only won one series, but it's the toughest league in the country. They played a tough out-of-conference
They were a
schedule.
9 seed, right?
Yeah, they were the 9 seed in the SEC tournament. But they did enough to get a host. They played their best softball in that regional. And then the Supers, I really didn't give them much of a chance in this Super Regional. I thought Tennessee, with their pitching, was going to be too tough. We saw how they shut Alabama down.
Especially how they lost Game 1.
Well, I will say this, though. They were held to one run in the 3 games in Tuscaloosa and were fortunate to win one. But I will say I got to give this team a lot of credit for their resiliency, because they really should have won Game 1 2-0. This should have been a sweep. but
Should've.
they made a defensive mistake, which has cost them this season. The two biggest areas of concern for Alabama this year have been the offense and at times defensively. But they let that game get away from them. But I got to be honest. I got to give Hevelin, she did not make any errors after she made the mistake in the 5th inning of game 1. In fact, she made a couple of great plays. And I've got to give a lot of credit just to the resiliency of the team, because I felt like that, and we'll ask Tom Canterbury, the voice of the softball program, this in a second. But that home run that Riley Valentine hit, for whatever reason, I think it just really ignited this team and in the regionals, and they did not play scared at all. And I thought they just basically took it to Tennessee. And once they found a way to get the job done in game 2, even though that was a marathon, once they finally broke through and got the hit to beat Tennessee, I just had a feeling in game 3, and then they got the grand slam early. Now the rain, Coach Murphy was bothered by it because he kind of felt like it could quell their momentum. But I just kept thinking back to 2012 and the rain delay, and that was a big reason they beat Oklahoma. Rain delays have been in Alabama's favor in softball.
Well, we do need to talk to Tom Canterbury. We're going to do that next in an intriguing way. That third game ended with the bases being loaded. But nonetheless, we're going to talk to Tom Canterbury coming up next right here on Talkin' Ball here on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
We've had a pretty easy ride in this morning. Had a couple of wrecks, 53 and Old Railroad Bed.
97.7 ESPN The Zone is the Tennessee Valley's #1 destination for the finest in sports talk all day long. Tune in to Talkin' Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond each morning at 7. Then, the Morning Blitz with Captain Cool and the Bandy Man. At noon, it's the Tom Abraham Show, followed by Paul Feinbaum and The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton. The Zone is also your home for University of Alabama and UAH sports, plus the Atlanta Braves and the High School Sports Streaming Network. And sister station Talk Radio WZZN has Trash Pandas action with Josh Carey all season long. 97.7 ESPN The Zone and Talk Radio WZZN. Listen on the air or download the apps and take them with you everywhere.
It has happened. 171.294 miles an hour.
You wake up late for school, man, you don't wanna go. You ask your mom, please, but she still says no. You missed 2 classes and no homework. But your teacher preaches class like you're some kind of jerk. You gotta fight for your right to party.
It's Talkin' Ball here on a Tuesday morning. Steve Moulton filling in for Scott Tyson. He'll be back here tomorrow morning along with Drew DeArmond. But it is time to and supers are now in the rearview mirror, Drew DeArmond, and those that are still playing softball means always a very special season.
No question about it. And the good karma is continuing for the 3rd straight week as the Alabama Crimson Tide are alive for the 15th time going to Oklahoma City as they vanquished the Tennessee Volunteers. It was an amazing weekend. It was awesome to have them on the call. And it's great before they get on the plane or bus. I guess they're going to fly out there. Surely they're flying.
Oh, they're going to fly.
To Oklahoma
Goodness,
City.
come on now.
And they're flying out to Oklahoma City in the very near future. And and it's going to be brunch because it's an 11 a.m. first pitch against UCLA. So the Czar will not be on the air that day. So
weather pending.
Weather pending. Yeah, we hope for good weather. That's the great thing, man. We had great weather in Hoover, and then we got a rain delay, which was a good omen for me for Alabama softball. But we're going to talk about all that and more with the longtime voice of the Crimson Tide softball program, Tom Canterbury. Tom, man, what a weekend it was for the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Hey guys, yeah, it was what a weekend for sure. It was one of the most impressive performances from an Alabama team that I've seen in recent memory, to be able to go up to Tennessee, the number 3 overall national seed, the 2-time SEC regular season champions, to go on the road there, lose game 1 in pretty heartbreaking fashion, and to be able to come back and win in the way that they did in games 2 and 3. Couldn't be prouder of this team, and team certainly doing what elite programs and elite teams do with elite coaches. They come together at the right time, and Alabama's certainly doing that now.
And Tom, I've got to ask, what was the mood around the team like when you felt like, because they got dominated in Tuscaloosa for the most part. They did win the last game 1-0, which is a great pitching performance by Caleb Beaver, but they still had so many problems offensively. But in game 1, to get off to such a great start, be ahead 2-0, be playing from out in front, which I thought was key, and then to have the game get away from you late. Talk about what was the vibe around the team going into game 2?
Yeah, you're right. Alabama scored in the first inning in all 3 games, and I think that was very important, like you said, playing out from out in front. But yeah, to come out. What I said last week was, Alabama was not playing well, especially offensively, when Tennessee came to Tuscaloosa during the regular season, and Alabama found a way to scratch a win across and scoring the only run of the entire series and winning 1-0 on Sunday, which I think gave Alabama some confidence going up to Knoxville this past weekend. And then I think the vibe actually was pretty good despite losing that first game, right, because – like you said, Alabama was out in front and was pretty much dominating the game. You could say Alabama was, the better team for 90-95% of that ball game. There was just, an error and then one bad pitch, and Tennessee was out in front, which is what really good teams do, not taking nothing away from Tennessee. But I think that is what gave Alabama a lot of confidence moving forward of, hey, we outplayed them. We played extremely well. Tough break to lose, but that's why it's a series, and I think Alabama felt really confident going into that Saturday game.
Tom, how can one person or one team celebrate Valentine's Day this often in one calendar year?
It's been really impressive to see what Riley Valentine has done, and we asked Coach Murphy about her during the pregame interview on Sunday after what she did on Saturday. And Coach Murphy was finding it hard to really explain too what she was able to do. And this is what we saw from Riley Valentine in the fall when she first got here from Texas A&M. What we saw even early on in the regular season. She became the everyday catcher when Marley Giles went down, and kind of struggled. But now that Marley is back and handling the catching duties, and Riley can just focus on being the designated player and just hitting, something has really turned. And that being said, at Texas A&M last year, not an everyday player, but had a home run in postseason there too. So maybe she's just a postseason player, but my goodness, she is having an excellent postseason. She almost walked off Saturday's game, hit a single off the wall, ended up getting thrown out at second, but that would have been a home run almost anywhere. But Tennessee has 8-foot walls instead of 6-foot walls, so it hit off the very top of the wall.
Of course.
But then had the grand slam on Sunday just before the weather came through. I thought it was huge that Alabama was able to get that entire top of the first inning before the lightning delay, but just can't think of a bigger hit than that grand slam in that first inning.
I can tell you this. I know you guys have called every game, but watching the ball go out and hearing that thunk and knowing that it was over the fence for Riley Valentine to put Alabama up 4-0, there can't be a more exhilarating feeling that early to get off to that kind of start.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it took the crowd out of it. I think Tennessee was playing somewhat somewhat tight to begin with, and it was an absolute gut punch to them. And then I think the biggest thing was that you had the grand slam, you had the 3-hour delay, and then Jocelyn Brisky came out and got a 1-2-3 inning in the bottom of the first, and did not allow Tennessee to get any momentum back. And Tennessee really, until that 7th inning, didn't really have a whole lot for Brisky or anything Alabama was doing.
As a program director, I want to thank you for that lightning delay, because we were able to get into the SEC baseball championship game, and literally as it was wrapping up post-game, 6:10 Central Time, boom, you guys are right back on it. So we were able to back that up pretty good. But we talked a little in seriousness of the unexpected run this year. There was so much Montana Fouts aura around this program. And for this run, for this team, what do you think this means for this squad accomplishing this feat without a Montana Fouts type of, spotlight on the program?
Yeah, it's been kind of just a confirmation of, what everything that Patrick Murphy is doing in the program that he's built. It's not about one person. Alabama was great before Montana Fouts got here, and continues to be. Now, you look at it, Alabama's now been to Oklahoma City 4 out of the last 6 years, and one of those years they didn't have a tournament. So it is Alabama staying at that level when you have to replace players, and that's what you have to do in college sports. People are only here for 4 or 5 years at the most, so you have to be able to replace. And as we talked about before, you don't replace Montana Fouts with one person. And I think, you have Caleb Beaver and Jocelyn Brisky, who behind Carlin Pickens and Peyton Gottschall at Tennessee, which I still think is the best 1-2 punch in the nation, in the circle. Jocelyn Brisky and Caleb Beaver one-upped a little bit here this weekend. And I think as of right now, they're pitching as well as anybody in the country, and it's a tremendous 1-2 punch, two pitchers that do something totally different. And in some ways, having two can be better than just having one. Now, that being said, last year Alabama didn't just have one. Jayla Torrance was outstanding to help out Montana. It's very rare that you just have one person in the circle that is going to be that dominant. But I think this just kind of confirms, that Lance McMahon is an elite pitching coach. Patrick Murphy is the elite head coach. Alabama has an elite program, and people are you're going to plug and play with whoever comes in.
And number 22 is a tough. She's mentally tough, man. I mean,
man, yeah. Callie Hedlund just had that error in the first game, but came right back and was and she was struggling at the plate here this weekend as well, but had the error in the first game. Second game, had an error, but Alabama, it didn't snowball. And then the same exact pinch hitter comes up, hits almost an identical ball to what happened in game one, and she made the routine play. It was fine, no problem. And then game 3 had that great leaping catch to steal a hit away from Riley West. And it's just, she's been outstanding at second base. And Alabama's defense all weekend long was just really, really solid and what Alabama needed to have to be able to beat the team the caliber of Tennessee.
And I'll say this too, Tom. I thought it was a huge, and I believe it was in the first inning of game 2. That if she doesn't make that diving play up the first baseline, that if that bloops in, Alabama's in big trouble. That was a heck of a
Absolutely.
play.
It really was, and the fact that it was off Kiki Malloy to get that catch there, you didn't give her another opportunity. It's possible that might have been foul had she not caught it, but it was going to be close for sure. But even if it was foul, that would have given Kiki Malloy another chance. And you got any chance you can to get her out, you got to do it. So what a play by her, and she is one of the most consummate examples of somebody that has developed from the day she stepped on campus at Alabama. She was the Gatorade Player of the Year in high school in Michigan. Came a freshman year, played at spots, wasn't an everyday player. struggled offensively last year, took a step up. This year has taken another step up. Really excited to see what she's going to do next year in her senior year. But this year is making some great plays for us.
Tom, what do you think of the matchup come Thursday at 11 a.m. against UCLA?
They've got to be confident.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that's in the World Series is going to be confident. Alabama is certainly riding a great high, but you're take on a UCLA team that may be overall playing as good as anyone in the country right now. They have quite the 1-2 punch in offensively with Maya Brady, who you may know is related to Tom Brady because they mention it every time she comes up, and Charlize Palacios, who has 20 homers on the year, and it seems as though 10 or 15 of them have come in postseason. So she is hitting a home run, seems like every other at bat she comes up. So two tremendous power threats for the Bruins at the plate, and then in the circle they have a 1-2 punch too, including Taylor Tinsley, who has a great chance to be maybe National Freshman of the Year. Has put up a great number for the Bruins, and they're a historically great program that is no strangers to going to Oklahoma City themselves. So it's going to be quite a matchup. I like that we're the first game from a broadcast perspective. It's good because that no one's going to
start time's the actual start time, right? Yeah. So that's
barring rain.
That's the most important thing, right? Well, that's always an issue in Oklahoma, but we'll see what happens. But it's a tough matchup, but everybody's good when you get to Oklahoma City. Alabama is the lowest seed team to make it, but they weren't supposed to beat Tennessee either. So we'll see what happens. UCLA is a great team, but Alabama has all the confidence in the world going up there, and a little bit different, I think, mindset-wise from last year, because last year it seemed as though getting to Oklahoma City was just such an accomplishment because of the injury to Montana Fouts and the dramatic way that Alabama got to Oklahoma City. This year, Alabama is as healthy as they've been all year long, and is playing as well as they've been all year long. And I think Alabama has a really good shot.
Yeah, they really do. And with Kristen White, her development, she was a tremendous at the plate in the Super Regional. And then you got Marley Giles back. And then Cahalan, I thought, really swung the bat well. So offensively, this team should be playing with much more confidence.
Oh, absolutely. Kinley goes 3 for 3 on Sunday against Tennessee, and the Riley Valentine Grand Slam doesn't happen if Kinley Cahalan doesn't get a 2-out base hit in that first inning, because that first inning, Peyton Gottschall came out and got Kristen White and Larissa Pruitt back-to-back strikeouts, and he said, well, maybe not a whole lot going to happen here in this first inning, but then single hit by pitch Grand Slam. So getting the 2-out production was huge for Alabama offensively, and that started with Kinley Cahalan at the plate. If she can give Alabama 3 for 3 or 2 for 3 performances like she has been here recently, setting that table for those RBI producers like Marley, and Jenna Johnson had a good weekend as well. You're right. I think offensively Alabama has put it together at the right time.
No question. Well,
Tom, I would imagine today is a travel day, is it not? Or...
It is. Yes, we do get on a plane. First time in this season that at least Gray and I get to travel in the air. So we get on the plane this afternoon, leaving Tuscaloosa. Tomorrow is practice and media day, banquets, all sorts of stuff going on tomorrow, and then we play ball Thursday.
Well, we look forward to it. We definitely want to.
We'll be listening.
Yeah, we're going to be listening. We need to keep the car. We're going to get Gray back on as well before you guys take to the circle and hopefully beat the Bruins, keep this unbelievable run going. But Tom, we certainly have greatly appreciated it and enjoyed this journey. Continued success, safe travels, and thank you for taking the time to relive a great weekend for Alabama softball.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me. And remember what happened to Alabama last time they played UCLA in the World Series. That was the Montana Fouts perfect game. So just
there you go.
Putting that out.
Good stuff from Tom. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good vibes. Thanks, nothing wrong with some good vibes. All right, thank you, Tom. Let's take our final time out. Tomorrow's headlines today with a little bit of an SEC theme on the other side here on Talkin' Ball.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on
97.7 ESPN The Zone is the Tennessee Valley's #1 destination for the finest in sports talk all day long. Tune in to Talkin' Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond each morning at 7. Then, the Morning Blitz with Captain Cool and the Bandy Man. At noon, it's the Tom Abraham Show, followed by Paul Feinbaum and The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton. The Zone is also your home for University of Alabama and UAH sports, plus the Atlanta Braves and the High School Sports Streaming Network. And sister station Talk Radio WZZN has Trash Pandas action with Josh Carey all season long. 97.7 ESPN The Zone and Talk Radio WZZN. Listen on the air or download the apps and take them with you everywhere.
It has happened. 171.294 miles an hour.
You wake up late for school, man, you don't want to go. You ask your mom, please, but she still says no. You missed 2 classes and no homework. But your teacher preaches class like you're some kind of jerk. You gotta fight for your right to party.
Also brought to you by SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, located online at sportsmedalabama.com. A lot made about the settlement that occurred last week between the NCAA and really the last 10 years. Why 10? I still have yet to get a reason why. It seemed like a big game of blackjack of just hit me, stick, hit, or just it just felt like this big negotiating ploy between the players and the folks there in charge, the university presidents and the chancellors. But here's a little bit of what the commissioner had to say on the settlement.
The settlement agreement is meant to deal with as much as we possibly can from a breadth of the issues in front of us that relate to antitrust. That said, I think Congress has still an opportunity to use the structure of this settlement to enact legislation to strengthen the future of college sports. And I hope that those who've said, well, we want to see you, college sports, involved in decision making before you come to us for solutions, take seriously that we are a part of problem solving. Obviously, we're in an election year. Congress is a challenging place to accomplish a task. And I say that respectfully. I mean, there's a lot on the plates of our House and Senate members. That said, you know, we have 11 teams in the baseball tournament leading to a College World Series. We have teams going to Oklahoma City to compete against other conferences in a College World Series. We talked about the college football playoff, the Final Four. This is a national system that deserves national standards, not just state by state, whether it's legislative action to determine rules or attorney general action to determine rules. We need national standards, and that's the role that Congress plays.
And it does not look like anything's coming out of D.C. anytime soon, Drew.
No, it's we got an election coming up. We got to get rid of somebody. Then
That's
we can
really
fix
not,
that.
but it's not really why I went there. But You know what?
That's why there
set
won't
that
be
up on
anything. There's not going to be anything.
I set that
done
up on a
because of
tee
that.
for you.
It's because they're too busy. Finally trying to get the gas prices down. Like it's like they couldn't have done that a year ago. But it is what it is. Typical Democratic BS.
So even the revenue percentage of 22% felt like a big negotiating tool as well.
When you have a shift of revenue up to 22%, things won't remain the same. And that predicts that people are going to have to make decisions. Now, that may be any number of wide range of issues that I haven't even begun to consider, some of which I can imagine, and some of which I'm certain we'll learn about this week and in the weeks to follow.
So we'll see what happens, but we will get a football schedule, a large part of the football schedule, coming up on Thursday down here. So that was some news that came out of the commissioner yesterday. The Morning Blitz is next. Scott Tyson will be back here on this particular program, Talking Ball, tomorrow morning. Drew DeArmond, always a pleasure, sir.
Thank you.
I'm sure we will talk to you later on this week.
I hope so. Enjoy Destin there, Steve.
I'll try to.
Tell Jimmy I hate Phil Fulmer.
I'll be right on that.
The kitchen is the heart of any home. It's where the family gathers. It's where kids discover old recipes and make them their own. Just starting out or just now getting started?